The Grand Assembly Hall was the largest structure ever built by intelligent life. It floated in the darkness of space, a massive crystal palace that caught the light of 3 distant suns. Inside, representatives from 847 different species sat in rows that stretched upward like a mountain. They came in all shapes and sizes. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no bodies at all and existed only as clouds of glowing energy. But today, every single one of them was looking at the same thing. They were looking at the human. Ambassador stood alone at a small podium on the chamber floor. She was 53 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and lines around her eyes from years of careful smiling. She wore a simple blue suit, the uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. Compared to the massive aliens that surrounded her, she looked like a child standing in a room full of giants. The silence in the hall was complete. 847 species, and not one of them made a sound. High Arbiter rose from his throne at the center of the chamber. He was a creature of living stone, 12 feet tall, with eyes that burned like orange fire. His people, the Dominion, had ruled the Galactic Council for 10,000 years. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall like thunder. "The Council has reached its decision," announced. "The human species has violated the sacred accords of expansion. You have established colonies in 3 systems of the outer reach without authorization. You have ignored our warnings. You have shown disrespect to this body and its laws." Said nothing, she simply watched and waited. "The punishment for such violations is clear," continued. "Your species has 2 choices: total subjugation under Council control or complete annihilation. You have 1 standard day to respond." A murmur passed through the assembly. Many of the delegates leaned forward, eager to see the humans' reaction. They expected fear. They expected begging. They expected tears. Humans were known to be emotional creatures after all, weak, soft. They had only been members of the galactic community for 12 years, barely a heartbeat in cosmic terms. Everyone knew they were not ready for this level of politics. Looked down at the small device on her wrist. It was a simple communicator, nothing special. She checked the time. Then she looked back up at the High Arbiter. And she smiled. It was not a nervous smile. It was not the smile of someone trying to hide their fear. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. "I have a question," said. Her voice was calm and clear. "Before I give our response, I want to make sure I understand correctly. The Council is officially declaring war on Earth. Is that right?" Stone's face showed something like confusion. This was not the reaction he had expected. "That is correct," he said slowly. "If you do not accept subjugation, the full military force of the Council will be used to destroy your species. Every human colony will be burned. Every human ship will be shattered. Yours will be reduced to ash. This is not a threat. This is a certainty." "Good," said. "I just wanted to make sure this was official. I wanted to make sure there were no misunderstandings." She pressed a button on her communicator. A single coded message flew across the stars at faster than light speed. It reached Earth in seconds. The message contained only 2 words. "Prometheus Unbound." "You have made a terrible mistake," said to the assembly. Her voice was still calm, almost gentle. "Not because we are innocent. We did colonize those systems. We did ignore your warnings. We did it on purpose." The murmurs in the hall grew louder. Several delegates shouted for her to be silent, but kept talking. "We did it because we needed you to declare war first. We needed the whole galaxy to see that the Council attacked us, not the other way around. We needed everyone to know that we gave you every chance to leave us alone." "Enough of this nonsense," growled. "Guards, remove her from the chamber." 4 soldiers stepped forward. They were a warrior species known for their speed and strength. Each one stood 8 feet tall and carried weapons that could cut through steel like paper. Did not move, she did not flinch, she simply raised one hand. "Before you touch me," she said, "you should know something. For the past 80 years, humanity has been preparing for this day. We knew it would come eventually. We knew that sooner or later the Council would find a reason to destroy us. That is what you do to young species. You absorb them, exploit them, or eliminate them. We have read your history. We know what happened to the Shan." Several delegates shifted uncomfortably at those names. Those species had been uplifted by the Council centuries ago. None of them existed anymore. "We played our role perfectly," continued. "We acted grateful. We acted humble. We accepted your bad trade deals and your worthless colony worlds. We smiled and nodded and pretended to be the naive newcomers you wanted us to be." She lowered her hand and looked directly at. "But the whole time we were getting ready. And now, thanks to your official declaration of war, we do not have to hide anymore." The High Arbiter laughed. It was a sound like rocks grinding together. "You are bluffing," he said. "We have studied your species. We know exactly what you have. 200 ships, most of them outdated. A handful of colony worlds with minimal defenses. Your entire military could not stand against a single Dominion battle group." "You know what we let you see," replied. "You know what we wanted you to know." She turned to address the whole assembly. "To every species in this hall I say this. What happens next is not our choice. We tried to live in peace. We tried to follow your rules. But the Council has decided that humanity must be destroyed, and we will not go quietly." She looked at her communicator one more time. A response had arrived from Earth. She read it and nodded. "The message has been received. By now, our true fleet is already moving. Your armada will meet them in the outer reach within hours." "Your true fleet," scoffed. "What true fleet? You have nothing." Began walking toward the exit. The guards moved to stop her, but something in her eyes made them hesitate. "You spent 12 years studying humanity," she said over her shoulder. "You learned our languages, our history, our biology, but you never learned the most important thing about us." She stopped at the doorway and turned back one final time. "You never learned that we are very, very good at pretending to be weak, and you never learned what happens when we stop pretending." She walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the delegates erupted into chaos. Some were shouting orders. Some were demanding explanations. Some were already sending warnings to their High Arbiter stood in the center of it all, his burning eyes fixed on the door where the human had disappeared. For the first time in his 10,000 years of life, he felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize the feeling. It was doubt. Far away, across the vast darkness of space, lights began to appear where no lights should be. Ships emerged from hidden places, from dimensional folds, from the shadows between stars. They were human ships, and there were thousands of them. The galaxy was about to learn the truth about humanity. And the truth was terrifying. Admiral Wei stood on the bridge of the HSS Inevitable and watched the stars through the massive. She was 61 years old, a small woman with short gray hair and a face that rarely showed emotion. She had spent her entire adult life preparing for this moment. Now that it had finally arrived, she felt strangely calm. "Admiral," her first officer said, "we have received the signal, Prometheus unbound. The Council has declared war." Wei nodded slowly. "How long until the Council's armada reaches the outer reach?" 12 hours, Admiral." "And our fleet?" "All ships report ready. 4,000 vessels standing by for your orders." Wei allowed herself a small smile. The Council thought humanity had 200 ships. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Send the order," she said. "All ships move to intercept positions. We meet them at Colony 1. As her officers rushed to obey, Wei walked to the observation window and looked out at the blackness of space. Her mind drifted back through the years, through the decades, through the secret history that only a handful of humans knew. It had started in 1947, in a desert in New Mexico. The crash at Roswell was real. The government had lied about it for decades, telling the public it was a weather balloon. But the truth was much more interesting. An alien observation drone had malfunctioned and fallen from the sky. It was small, unmanned, and filled with technology that humans could barely understand. But they learned. In secret laboratories around the world, the best scientists of every nation worked together for the first time in history. They studied the alien device. They took it apart piece by piece. They learned its secrets. And they realized something terrifying. The drone was not alone. There were thousands of them scattered throughout Earth's solar system. They had been watching humanity for centuries, waiting, studying, reporting back to someone. The world's leaders faced a choice. They could reveal the truth and cause global panic, or they could stay quiet and prepare. They chose to prepare. For the next 80 years, humanity put on a show for the watching eyes in the sky. They continued their wars, their conflicts, their petty squabbles. They broadcast signals into space that made them look primitive and divided. They pretended to be exactly what the observers expected, a young, foolish species that posed no threat to anyone. But behind the curtain, everything was different. The secret alliance grew. Every major nation contributed resources, scientists, and soldiers. They built hidden facilities on the dark side of the moon, in the depths of the ocean, in caverns deep beneath the earth. They reverse-engineered alien technology and then improved upon it. When the Galactic Council finally made official contact in 2089, humanity was ready. But not ready to fight, not yet. The Council ambassadors arrived expecting to find a primitive species grateful for the attention of their betters. Humanity gave them exactly that. Earth's leaders smiled and bowed. They accepted unfair trade agreements without complaint. They took the worst colony worlds and said thank you. The Council was pleased. Here was another young species to exploit, another civilization to control, another group of useful servants for the great galactic order. They never suspected the truth. Wei remembered her own training decades ago. She had been just a young officer then, selected for the secret program that would eventually become humanity's hidden fleet. Her instructors had taught her patience above all else. The Council has ruled the galaxy for 100,000 years, her teacher had said. They have destroyed countless species that tried to resist them openly. We will not make that mistake. We will smile. We will bow. We will wait. And when the time is right, we will show them what humanity can really do. The waiting had been the hardest part, watching the Council treat humanity like children. Watching Earth's diplomats accept insult after insult with grateful smiles, knowing that they could fight back but choosing not to. But the plan required patience. It required the Council to believe they were dealing with a weak, harmless species. It required them to lower their guard. The 3 colonies in the outer reach were the final piece of the puzzle. They were never meant to succeed. They were bait, designed to give the Council an excuse to attack. Humanity needed the Council to strike first. They needed the whole galaxy to see who the aggressor was. And now, finally, the trap was complete. Admiral, her communications officer, called out, "Incoming message from Earth Command." Wei turned from the window, put it through. A holographic image appeared in the center of the bridge. It was General Stone, the commander of Earth's secret military forces. He was an old man with white hair and a face covered in scars from battles that officially never happened. Admiral Stone said, "I trust you received the signal." "Yes, General, we are moving into position now." "Good, the Council's armada is larger than we expected, 12,000 ships from 16 species." Wei raised an eyebrow. 12,000. They want to make an example of us. They are bringing everything they have. Wei thought about this for a moment, then she smiled. "That will make it easier," she said. "We can destroy their entire fleet in one battle instead of hunting them down one by one." Stone nodded. That is what we hoped you would say. The President has authorized full use of all weapon systems. No restrictions. Understood, General. One more thing, Admiral. The galaxy will be watching this battle. Every species in the Council will see what happens. This is not just a military operation. It is a message. Wei understood perfectly. For 80 years, humanity had hidden its strength. Now it was time to reveal it. And the revelation had to be so shocking, so overwhelming, that no one would ever think of threatening Earth again. The message will be received, Wei said, loud and clear. The hologram faded. Wei turned to her bridge crew. All hands to battle stations. Activate the dimensional drives. Prepare all weapon systems. Around her, the crew moved with perfect efficiency. These were the best soldiers humanity had ever produced, trained in secret for decades. They knew their ships better than they knew their own bodies. They were connected to their vessels' artificial intelligence through neural links that made human and machine into one seamless fighting unit. The Council thought humanity was fighting with 200 outdated ships and crews of soft, emotional creatures. They had no idea what was coming. Wei sat down in her command chair and looked at the stars streaked past as the inevitable accelerated to impossible speeds. 80 years of smiling and nodding, she said quietly. 80 years of playing the fool. 80 years of watching them laugh at us and thanking them for the privilege. She clenched her fist. Time to show them our teeth. In the depths of space, 4,000 human ships moved as one. They did not travel through the normal hyperspace lanes that the Council used. They folded space itself, slipping through dimensions that the Council did not even know existed. The Armada was expecting a slaughter. They were about to get one. But not the one they had planned. Fleet Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship and felt the excitement of the hunt. He was a species of tall, thin creatures with pale blue skin and 4 arms. His people had served as the Council's executioners for 3,000 years. When a species needed to be destroyed, they were called. And now they had been called to destroy humanity. Reports commanded. All ships in position, Commander, his tactical officer replied. 12,000 vessels from 16 species, the largest fleet assembled in a century. Looked at the human colony hung in space before him, a small blue world orbiting a yellow star. It was called Colony 1, the first human settlement in the outer reach. In a few hours, it would be nothing but ash. Scan for enemy ships, ordered. His officer worked the controls, then frowned. Commander, I am detecting no human vessels. The colony appears to be undefended. Undefended, laughed. They have already surrendered. The cowards did not even try to fight. Should we proceed with the bombardment? Not yet. First, we take prisoners. The Council wants examples to show the other young species. Bring us into orbit. The massive armada moved toward the small blue world. 12,000 ships, carrying millions of soldiers, enough firepower to crack a planet in half. The humans had no chance. But as the fleet approached, began to feel uneasy. Something was wrong. The colony was too quiet. Where were the people? Where were the ships? Even a retreating enemy left traces. Scan the planet again, he ordered. Look for life signs. His officer obeyed, then turned pale. Commander, the colony is empty. No life signs at all. The entire population is gone. Gone? Where could they go? Before anyone could answer, a signal came through the communication system. It was an automated message, broadcasting on all frequencies. You were warned. Stared at the screen. What does that mean? Warned about what? Then the alarm started screaming. Commander, ships appearing, many ships. From what direction? His officer's voice cracked with fear. From everywhere. Looked at thee and saw something impossible. Human ships were appearing out of thin air, not from hyperspace lanes, not from behind planets or moons. They were folding into existence from nowhere, emerging from dimensions that could not even see. They appeared above the fleet, below the fleet, behind the fleet, inside the fleet. And there were thousands of them. "Open fire!" screamed. "All ships open fire!" The Armada responded with everything they had. Plasma cannons lit up the darkness. Missile swarms filled the void. Energy beams sliced through space. The firepower was incredible, enough to destroy 100 fleets. But the human ships moved like ghosts. They danced between the attacks with impossible grace. They turned at angles that should have torn them apart. They accelerated and stopped in ways that every law of physics. The Armada's weapons found only empty space. And then the humans fired back. Their weapons were unlike anything had ever seen. Beams of light that passed through shields as if they did not exist. Missiles that broke apart into thousands of smaller missiles, each one finding a different target. Waves of energy that disrupted electronics and left ships drifting dead in space. The first Council ship exploded, then another, then 100 more. Watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. Ships that had conquered worlds, ships crewed by warriors with centuries of experience, ships armed with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. They were being destroyed like toys. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" His tactical officer was crying now. "Commander, we have lost 2,000 ships, 3,000. The humans are. They know where we will fire before we fire. They know where we will move before we move. It is like they can see the future." They could not see the future, but they had something almost as good. Every human ship was connected to a vast artificial intelligence network. The AI analyzed billions of data points every second. It predicted enemy movements with 99% accuracy. It coordinated human ships so perfectly that 4,000 vessels moved as one organism. And the human pilots were not just operating their ships, they were merged with them. Neural implants connected their minds directly to the ship's systems. They did not push buttons or pull levers. They thought, and the ship obeyed. The line between human and machine had disappeared. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Armada that had come to destroy humanity was nothing but debris. 8,000 Council ships had been reduced to scrap metal. The rest had fled in panic, their crews broken by what they had witnessed. Human losses, 340 ships. Admiral Wei stood on the bridge of the inevitable and surveyed the wreckage. Her face showed no joy, no satisfaction, only grim determination. "Send a message to Earth Command," she said. "The Battle of Reach's End is over. The Armada has been destroyed." "Yes, Admiral. Should we pursue the survivors?" Wei shook her head. "Let them go. Let them run back to there and tell everyone what they saw. That is more valuable than killing them." She was right. Within days, the survivors' reports spread across the galaxy. They spoke of human ships that appeared from nowhere, weapons that ignored shields, pilots who could not be hit, an enemy that fought with terrible, beautiful precision. The Council species had expected to watch an execution. Instead, they had witnessed a massacre, and they had been on the wrong side of it. On the Council station at an ambassador sat in a holding cell, watching the battle reports on a small screen. Guards had placed her there after she had been removed from the Grand Assembly. They had expected her to spend her last hours in fear. Instead, she was smiling. The door to her cell opened. High Arbiter stood in the doorway, his stone face cracked with what might have been confusion or fear. "You knew," he said. "You knew this would happen." Stood up and stretched. "I tried to warn you." How did you hide this? We watched your species for decades. We had spies in your government. We studied every ship you built." "You studied every ship we let you see," corrected. "You watched the show we put on for you. You believed what we wanted you to believe." Was silent for a long moment. Then he asked the question that was eating at him. "What happens now?" Walked to the door of her cell. The guards made no move to stop her. They seemed uncertain, afraid. "Now," she said, "now the real war begins, but not the war you expected. We are not going to invade your worlds. We are not going to enslave your people. We are going to do something much worse." "What?" Smile grew wider. "We are going to tell the truth." She walked past the High Arbiter and down the corridor. Behind her, felt that strange feeling in his chest again. The feeling of doubt. And for the first time in 10,000 years, he wondered if everything he believed might be wrong. The galaxy held its breath. After the Battle of Reach's End, every species in the Council expected the human fleet to sweep across the stars like a wave of fire. That is what conquerors did. That is what the Council had done to countless species before. The strong took from the weak. That was the only law that mattered. But humanity did something unexpected. They stopped. For 3 days the human fleet held position in the outer reach. They did not advance. They did not attack. They simply waited. High Arbiter used that time to prepare defenses. He called every remaining ship back to protect the Council. He sent messages to allied species, begging for reinforcements. He fortified every station, every planet, every moon. But deep in his heart, he knew it would not be enough. If the humans had destroyed 12,000 ships in a single battle, no defense could stop them. So when the human transmission came, listened. Admiral Wei appeared on every screen in the galaxy. Her image was broadcast to every planet, every ship, every station. Billions of beings stopped what they were doing to watch. "People of the galaxy," Wei said, "I speak to you not as a conqueror but as a messenger. My species did not want this war. We hid our true strength for 80 years because we hoped we would never have to use it. We wanted to live in peace. We wanted to be part of your community." She paused, letting her words sink in. But the Council would not allow it. The Council sees young species as threats to be eliminated or resources to be exploited. This is not just our opinion. This is historical fact. The screen behind her changed. Documents appeared. Records, testimonies, files that had been locked in Council archives for thousands of years. 17 species have been uplifted by the Council in the past 10,000 years, Wei continued. Though the Shan, and 14 others. Do you know what happened to them? They are all gone, every single one. Images appeared on screens across the galaxy. Images of beautiful worlds reduced to ashes. Images of unique cultures erased from existence. Images of entire species worked to death in Council factories or starved into extinction. The Council calls this protection. They call it guidance. They call it the natural order. But we have another word for it. We call it murder. The response was immediate. On hundreds of worlds, beings who had accepted Council rule for generations stared at their screens in shock. The Council had always told them that the disappeared species had died from natural causes, diseases, civil wars, tragic accidents. Now they saw the truth. The Council had killed them all. "We obtained these files through decades of careful work," Wei said. "Our diplomats, our traders, our scientists, they were all gathering information. We knew that someday we would need to show the galaxy what the Council really is." She leaned closer to the camera. "Humanity is not here to conquer you. We are here to free you. Every species that wishes to break away from the Council will have our protection. Every species that wishes to stand with us will be treated as an equal partner. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We want to give it back to its people." The transmission ended, and the galaxy erupted. On the world of the slave species rose up against their dominion masters for the first time in 1,000 years. On the moons of Vestral, workers refused to enter the factories that had drained their people for generations. On 100 different worlds, species that had been crushed under Council rule suddenly saw a different future. They saw hope. The Council tried to fight back. They sent armies to suppress the rebellions. They broadcast counter-messages calling the human files lies and forgeries. They promised rewards for any species that remained loyal. But the truth spread faster than lies. Human ships began appearing above oppressed worlds, not as invaders but as protectors. When Council forces moved to punish rebellious species, they found human vessels waiting for them. The first few battles were quick and brutal. Council ships that tried to bomb civilian populations were destroyed before they could fire a single shot. Word spread. If you stood against the Council, humanity would stand with you. One by one, species began to defect. The Vestral Collective, long treated as second-class citizens, declared independence and asked for human alliance. The workers sent representatives to Admiral Way's flagship. The thought to be extinct emerged from hidden colonies in deep space, eager to help bring down the empire that had nearly destroyed them. High Arbiter watched his coalition crumble. In his private chambers on the Council station, he stood before a window and stared out at the stars. Once, this view had filled him with pride. The Dominion had ruled these stars for 100,000 years. Their power had seemed eternal. Now it was falling apart in a matter of days. They are not fighting a war, said to himself. They are fighting an idea. They are showing everyone that there is another way. His advisor, a small creature named, stood nervously beside him. High Arbiter, we still have loyal forces. We can still fight. Fight what? Asked. Half our fleet was destroyed at Reach's end. Half of what remains has deserted, or the species that depended on us are rising against us. He shook his massive stone head. We are not losing a war. We are losing our empire. Then what do we do? Was silent for a long moment. He thought about his ancestors who had built the Dominion with blood and conquest. He thought about the species they had crushed, the worlds they had burned, the civilizations they had erased. He had always believed it was necessary. The strong must rule the weak. That was the only way to maintain order. But now he wondered if there was another way. Contact the human fleet, said finally. Tell them I wish to negotiate. His eyes went wide. Negotiate, High Arbiter, that would be seen as weakness. The other Council species. The other Council species are already leaving us, interrupted. In a month, there will be no Council left. We can fight to the end and lose everything, or we can accept reality and try to save what we can. He turned from the window. Arrange the meeting. I will speak to the human admiral myself. 3 days later, Shuttle approached the HSS Inevitable. It was the first time a High Arbiter had ever visited a human ship, insisted on going alone, without guards or advisors. Admiral Way met him in a simple conference room. No ceremony, no grand displays, just two beings sitting across a table from each other. You destroyed my fleet, said. You tore apart my alliance. You are dismantling an empire that has stood for 100,000 years. Way nodded, yes. I want to understand something. You could conquer us. You could enslave us as we enslaved others. Why do you not? Way considered the question carefully before answering. Because we do not want to become you, she said. We studied your history. We saw what empire does to species. It corrupts them. It makes them see others as tools instead of people. We are not interested in ruling the galaxy. We are interested in making something better. Was silent for a long time. You are either very wise, he said finally, or very foolish. History will judge which. Then let us make history worth judging, Way replied. The Council is finished, but its species do not have to be. Help us build something new, something where every species has a voice, something where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. She extended her hand. What do you say, High Arbiter? Are you ready to help build a new galaxy? Looked at her hand, such a small thing, such a simple gesture. In that moment, he made his choice. He reached out and took it. 1 year later, the galaxy was a different place. The Treaty of Sol was signed in Earth's solar system. in a great station built between Earth and Mars. Representatives from over 300 species came to witness the birth of something new. They called it the Galactic Compact. It was not an empire. It was not a council of powerful species ruling over weaker ones. It was something that had never existed before, a true partnership of equals. Every species, no matter how old or young, had one vote. Every species had the right to defend itself. Every species was free to develop its own culture, its own technology, its own destiny. The days of uplift and protection that led to extinction were over. And at the center of it all, refusing to take the throne that everyone expected them to claim, was humanity. Ambassador stood at the podium as the final documents were signed. She looked out at the gathered representatives, beings of every shape and size, from every corner of the galaxy, and felt a deep sense of pride. Not pride in conquest, not pride in power, pride in what they had chosen not to become. 1 year ago, she said, the old council declared war on humanity. They expected to find a weak species, easily crushed. Instead, they found something they did not understand. She paused, letting the memory wash over her. They did not understand that strength is not just about weapons and ships. True strength is about knowing what you are fighting for. We fought for the right to exist. We fought for the right to be free. And we fought for a galaxy where no species would ever have to hide their true nature out of fear. The chamber was silent. Every eye was on her. Many have asked why humanity did not take control. We had the military power. We had the political opportunity. We could have become the new rulers of the galaxy, and no one could have stopped us. She smiled, the same smile she had worn in the council chamber a year ago. We refused because we learned from your history. Every empire that has risen has eventually fallen. Every species that tried to control the galaxy eventually lost itself in the process. We do not want that fate. We want to be partners, not masters. We want to build something that will last not because it is held together by force, but because it is held together by choice. She stepped back from the podium. The Galactic Compact is not humanity's gift to the galaxy. It is something we built together, and together we will face whatever comes next. The chamber erupted in applause. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years stood side by side, united by a new hope. After the ceremony, found a quiet observation deck where she could watch Earth turning slowly below. The planet looked so small from up here, so fragile. It was hard to believe that such a tiny world had changed the course of galactic history. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to find approaching. The former High Arbiter looked different now. The fire in his eyes had dimmed to a warm glow. The weight of empire had been lifted from his shoulders. "Ambassador," he said, "may I join you?" "Of course." They stood together in silence for a moment, watching Earth. "I have a question," said finally, "one that has been bothering me since we first met." "Ask it." "When you stood in the Grand Assembly when I declared war on your species, you smiled. You were calm. You were confident. But you could not have known for certain that your plan would work. You could not have known that humanity would win." Nodded. "That is true. We did not know." "Then why were you so confident?" Thought about the question for a long time before answering. "Because I knew something about humanity that you did not," she said. "You calculated our ships, you counted our weapons, you measured our technology, but you never calculated our will." She turned to face him. "Humans have a saying, 'It is better to die on your feet than live on your knees.' We meant it. Every single human being knew the stakes. Every single one of us was prepared to fight to the last breath, not because we wanted to die, but because living as slaves was worse than death. Consider this. Your species is very strange," he said. "You are small, you are soft, your lives are short, and yet you have a fire in you that burns brighter than species 100 times your age." Laughed, Maybe that is because our lives are short. We do not have centuries to achieve our goals. We have decades, so we burn brightly while we can. They watched Earth together for a while longer, then asked another question. What happens now? The compact is built, the old order is gone. What does humanity do next? Pointed at the stars beyond Earth. We explore, we learn, we grow. There is so much we do not know. The galaxy is vast and we have only seen a tiny piece of it. What lies beyond the rim? What other species are out there? What wonders are waiting to be discovered? She smiled. The Council spent 100,000 years building walls and controlling territories. We want to spend the next 100,000 years tearing down walls and expanding horizons. We want to see everything, learn everything, meet everyone. Shook his head slowly. You truly are a remarkable species. We are a human species, replied. That is enough. 6 months later, retired from the diplomatic service, she returned to Earth, to a small farm in Argentina that had been in her family for generations. She spent her days tending crops and watching the sunset over the mountains. One evening, her granddaughter came to sit with her on the porch. The girl was 7 years old, with bright eyes full of curiosity. Grandmother, the girl said, what are you thinking about? Looked at the sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. I am thinking about how we spent a century pretending to be small, she said, and how good it feels to finally stand tall. The girl did not fully understand, but she would. Someday, when she was older, she would learn the story of how humanity had hidden in plain sight, preparing for a battle that would change everything. She would learn about the secret alliance, the hidden fleet, the moment when her grandmother had smiled in the face of destruction and said, "It is finally time." And she would carry that story forward, passing it to her own children, and the story of how humanity had refused to be conquered. The story of how they had beaten an empire not just with weapons, but with patience, with truth, and with the simple belief that freedom was worth any price. Far away on the edge of the galaxy, something stirred. Human explorers had detected signals from beyond the rim. Strange signals, unlike anything in the galactic archives. They spoke of something ancient, something vast, something that had been sleeping for millions of years. A new mystery, a new challenge. Admiral Wei, now retired but still consulted on matters of importance, received the report in her home on Luna. She read it carefully, then set it down and looked out at the stars. So there is something else out there, she murmured. Something we have never seen before, something that might be dangerous. She thought about how humanity had spent 80 years preparing for the Council. She thought about the patience, the sacrifice, the determination that had carried them through. And she smiled. We have been preparing for this too, she said. Because that was what humans did. They faced the unknown. They stood against the darkness. They pushed forward when others would retreat. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity in war. Now it would learn to rely on humanity in peace. And whatever came next, whatever ancient power was stirring beyond the rim, humanity would be ready. They were always ready. That was what it meant to be human.